with it. I mean, it had been bubbling like mad, and they tested the oxygen level once an hour, and it never went anaerobic, and yet it was crappy compost tea. But what they found was that it had gone anaerobic for 10 minutes in the middle of the hour, then gone aerobic again, but that 10 minutes of anaerobic time was enough to kill out so much of the life in there. So when in doubt, I mean, you know, we're not treating 1,000 acres of cropland here. If you're going to do this, err on the side of caution, and you'll end up with a much better tea.
Bob.
Yes.
You know when I had that soil sample by Texas Plant, he told me to put sulfur in my garden, and you were saying it kills bacteria.
Well, it kills fungi.
Oh.
Kills fungi. I don't recommend the use of sulfur. He still does some chemical stuff. Sulfur combines with water to make sulfuric acid, which makes your soil more acidic, which frees up some additional nutrients. But if I'm using sulfur, it's a very, very limited amount. Yes, sir.
And molasses are used for cattle or cowlicks or what?
It depends on what's in there. I mean, they make a lot of different ones.
Got
The one I use is non-sulfur, so mine.
Got a lot of sulfur in it?
You have to ask the people that you're getting it from, because they don't use just straight molasses. They bump it up and all sorts of other things in there for the cows.
Yeah, or was it? They put protein in it.
Yeah, urea usually, and things like that. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a danger of using the compost on something like alfalfa because it's a hot food?
No. No. Alfalfa greatly benefits from compost tea because alfalfa, of course, is not a grass, it's a legume, and as such is much more subject to bad fungal infections. Alfalfa growers hate to see fungus get started in their alfalfa patch. Compost tea almost totally stops the fungal problem. So a lot of alfalfa growers are using compost tea.
Bob.
Yes.
You know, I buy my revitalizer by bulk. Of course, you know, that's sitting out in his backyard, and when I haul it home, it's sitting in my pile. And you were saying you didn't want to expose your compost to the heat.
Oh, no, no, no. Sitting in a pile at home is fine. Sitting in a plastic bag in the middle of the parking lot.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a little
I understand
different.
what you're saying.
Don't take it right off the surface. I mean, you get down 6 inches into it, but that's not a problem. That's not a problem at all. Okay, sugary things stimulate bacteria. If you specifically want to stimulate fungi, various brands will do it. Oat bran and wheat bran are two things that has been found really do stimulate a lot of different fungi in making compost tea. Then there are some other things you can add that really seem to help both bacteria and fungus. Hydrolyzed fish. Now there are two ways they make fish emulsion. One way they make it involves a heat process which kills off a lot of the life that's in your fish emulsion.
What does the bran stimulate? I'm sorry.
The bran stimulates fungus, beneficial fungi. The better forms of fish to use are what we call hydrolyzed or cold-pressed fish. And this stuff will really pick up the growth both of bacteria and of fungi, you know, in your compost tea. I highly recommend adding a little bit of hydrolyzed fish when you make your compost tea. Again, to 5 gallons, we'll probably put an ounce or two. To our bigger brewer, we're probably going to put about a cup of this stuff in there. Beyond that, the Thrive product that I was talking to Howard about this morning, this has a lot of different bacteria in it. It also has the mycorrhizal fungi in it. I would not put this in at the very beginning of the brewing process, because if you actually get your mycorrhizal fungi active, they've got to come in contact with the plant pretty quickly. So if you're going to add something like mycorrhizal fungus to it, add this toward the end of the brewing process, because your fungi reproduce more slowly. You're not going to get a huge increase in active fungus. You're going to get an increase in the spore form, or in the case of this, what they call the propagules. But things like this, you probably want to put in the last hour or two before you get ready to use your compost tea. But in general, we're going to put our fish in, we're going to put our bran in, we're going to put a little bit of molasses in, and whatever other black magic we can think of to put in there. And again, it's just a matter of experimenting and seeing what works best.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am?
you said the bran. The bran is different. What kind of bran?
Oat bran, wheat bran.
And how much?
Get at the grocery store. Probably half a cup.
Okay.
Yes.
What about additives like blood meal and bone meal and things like that, should you stay away from things like that? Or?
I would almost say experiment with it and see. We tend to feel like we get plenty with the other things rather than putting that in there. But I'm a big experimenter. I don't see anything wrong with giving it a try.
What about seaweed?
Seaweed would be a great thing to add. Yeah, seaweed is another thing along with your hydrolyzed fish. Seaweed is a great thing to add to it. Yes.
Little vinegar.
Of not the distilled vinegar, but apple cider vinegar, yeah, a little bit would be fine. Don't overdo it because acetic acid, which is what vinegar is hard on things. But the natural apple cider vinegar is just fine to add half a cup to, to 5 gallons or something like that.
How about the ground flaxseed instead of bran?
That would be great. That'd be just fine. Yes.
When you have the fish emulsion, do you just drop it into the water?
Just mix it in the water. Yeah, just pour it in the water. Anything you pour in here is going to get mixed up because that bubbling action is really going to keep things stirred around inside there. Yes, sir.
Could you just like use rolled oats instead of oat bran?
It's not quite as effective because there's not quite as much surface area, but it's still good. Oat bran is chopped up finely enough, you simply have more surface area for the fungi that are in there to colonize on and start to reproduce. So it's good, but the bran is probably 10 times better because it probably has 10 times more surface area. Yes, sir.
You said sugars for bacteria and oat brands and whatnot for the fungi. Can you grow it together?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. But again, if you're out there trying to soften the soil is the main purpose of making your tea, you're interested mainly in bacterial activity. If you're out there spraying to try to control a fungus problem, you're interested more in beneficial fungi. So you can make something slightly different every time you make it.
Does it help control the black spot on roses?
Oh, it will. Absolutely. It certainly will.
Spraying it?
Yeah. And that, you got a little cornmeal in there if you want to. Cornmeal grows a fungus called trichoderma. Trichoderma is what controls your black spot. But yes, it will very definitely help with black spot. Yes?
That bubbler that you bought, does it come like that, or did you have to put it together yourself?
I got it in 4 different packages. I got this in one package. I got a chunk of the tubing in one package. I got the air stones in another package. This little splitter came with the air deal.
Stones, they come in different sizes?
They come in different sizes. This one's probably big enough for this bucket, and this one's probably big enough for the bag. But if you want to put 2 or 3 or 4 stones in there, it would be just fine.
You get that at
I got it at Pet Works right down here in Lincoln Heights. Yes.
And you put the one bubbler in the bag and the other bubbler in the bucket
Exactly.
during the initial phase.
Right.
Yeah.
Then when you take your compost out, might as well dump that other stone down in there and get as much air as possible. Yes.
I'm sorry, one more question. On the oat bran and wheat bran, are you just sticking that in the bucket or you put that in the bag?
If it's a real brandy material, it's actually probably you're going to put it in the water. But if you're using that and you're going to put this through a sprayer, then you may have to strain it before you put it in your sprayer. If you're just pouring it on, the great majority of compost tea that goes onto my garden gets poured on rather than sprayed on. And the reason is that on Sunday afternoon, if we have anything left over here, it goes home with me and goes into my garden. But I'm not going to take time to strain it before I spray it. But if you're using the brands and they're coarse enough they might clog up your sprayer, then you'll probably have to strain it. But you don't want to put it in with your compost because you're taking that out halfway or a third of the way into the brewing process. You'd rather that brand stay down in your soup, so to speak, that you're making.
So just put it in the water.
Just put it in the
And
water.
that Thrive? Because when you said Thrive Vitamin, you thought of the Super Thrive.
Yeah, no, Super Thrive we're going to leave
Because
out.
I used that Super Thrive when you told me before to use it. That stuff worked good.
Yeah, but I wouldn't put that in compost tea. Thrive is a totally different process.
And
product.
that, how much do you put in there?
Probably 2 or 3 tablespoons in here, probably half a bottle in the other one.
Okay.
Again, it's not rocket science. Yes.
Well, we gotta start
It seemed
somewhere.
like you and I discussed on the 5-gallon bucket, since I got such a large garden, we could take that compost tea and break it like in 4 parts.
Yeah, 5 to 1,
5
4
to
to 1, 5 to 1,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, that's fine. That's just fine. Okay, now we've got it started brewing. Yes, ma'am.
What did you say if you're going to buy the compost to put in the bag? What did you say was the best time to buy?
Revitalizer Compost by Ladybug.
Okay.
It, I think is the best compost for purchase on the market.
All right.
What about New Earth compost?
New Earth compost is good.